Hi, I am Dr. Tiffany Row, and thanks for joining me for this webinar. This webinar is going to cover special education during the pandemic, what's working. So I teach in the Department of Special Education here at Cal State Fullerton. I am the program coordinator for the mild to moderate credential program. So this webinar is going to cover what we know so far. At the time of right now of this recording, it's end of October, early November. We'll post this early next week. And so we've been at this for a while, right? We've been at this since March. Currently, schools have gone back, many of them, not all of them. Some are still distance learning 100%, some are kind of hybrid. So while there's still a lot we're figuring out, we have learned a lot that helps, that works. So I gathered information from a number of sources to really find out what's working so far. What can I share with our teachers that will help them know what actually works rather than just going about it blindly? So there are some schools that have been online, even pre-pandemic, for special education. That was a really rich source of information where I found a lot of strategies that work. Of course, you know, it varies, but I attended a webinar from the help group, and it was so valuable. So I definitely want to give them credit. That was a really useful source of information. If you're interested in learning more about them, you can search for the help group. And then I also gleaned a lot of information from articles that had been written even pre-pandemic about distance learning and special education. And then a lot of non-research articles, but just kind of anecdotal, have been written since March. And then also the schools that we've partnered with, you know, we've really been able to gather a lot of information about what's working, what didn't work so well in the spring when it was very sudden and unprepared, and then, you know, the lessons learned and what has been put in place going forward here in the fall, and has been, you know, some positives from that. So just a little background on where this information is coming from. All right, so let's get started. I thought this was really cute. I've seen this a couple of times pop up. It says some of the greatest teachers of all time taught virtually. And as you can see, it's Fred Rogers and LeVar Burton and Bob Ross and Steve Irwin. And I think it's a nice thing to remember that, you know, certainly these were very beloved people and touched a lot of hearts, young and old. And people feel that, you know, they really connected with all four of these people. They're known for sort of connecting with their viewers. So I think it's a nice thing to remember that it is possible to connect with your students, even on distance learning. And even if you're not sure if that connection is happening, you know, it can, and it probably is more than you're aware of. Now, of course, these fine people up here on the screen did not have to track attendance or worry about whether everybody was showing up and staying focused and getting their work done and actually learning. They didn't have to do any assessments and then reflect on the assessments and drive future instruction, right? So are they teachers? Well, they were TV people, right? Who were skilled teachers in many ways, but they didn't have all the things that you have to do, all the same responsibilities that you have as school teachers. So I just want to say that this is a little bit oversimplistic. It doesn't take into account actual teaching, but I still think that it's a nice reminder that we can still be effective and touch lives. Okay, so I'm going to go into several of these points in more detail in other slides, but let me just give you an overview. This is some of the information that I collected from all of those sources that I mentioned before. And what seems to really be working, number one, is teachers who have a positive, forward-thinking mindset. So we know that we've got to have like growth mindset, right? We teach that to our students. We want our students to have a positive mindset. It's hard. I'm not saying that it's easy. In the middle of a pandemic, all this craziness going on, it sure is hard to stay positive. But we're finding that that mindset really helps the distance learning, the hybrid learning to be more successful. There's a lot of positives that are coming out of distance learning that we weren't expecting. For example, teachers and students alike, and also in many cases parents, have way more technology skills and understanding than ever before. So that's kind of the forward thinking part that I'm talking about, is that we are learning so many lessons from this. And if we can look at it from that kind of growth thinking, then it's going to go smoother and be more effective that way. So your mindset really does work. Also, teachers who are personable, engaging, funny, enthusiastic, and compassionate. You are already those things in your in-person teaching. So it's a matter of figuring out how to make that come through virtually. It can, you've probably been at it for a while now, but it can be a little bit awkward at first. But just keep being encouraging with yourself and getting more comfortable, and your true self that your students love in person will shine virtually as well. Also, I can't stress this enough, investing time and effort to build and maintain positive relationships with students. We know this, whether it's distance learning or business as usual instruction, that the connection between student and teacher is so huge. It is the core of everything. And research shows that this is the case from preschool through college. When students feel a connection to their teacher, they are more likely to feel a connection to their peers, feel a connection to the content, and feel a connection to the school as a whole. So don't give up on those connections. I'm sure you haven't, but that is really the root of everything, it's making time to build relationships with your students. Of course, close collaboration with families is a must. Every family has their own different situation. And so it's very important to really keep up that collaboration and invest time in collaborating with families. I'll talk more about that. Schedules, routines, predictability and structure, sensory supports at home, live and lively instruction, and not just that, but daily. So in the spring, one thing that was very common and completely understandable is that a lot of students got distance learning packets, and there wasn't a lot of daily instruction. And the reason for that is because it was so sudden, and not all students had the resources at home that they needed to participate and join in live lessons. And we just weren't prepared for it. So there was distance learning packets. That was a little bit shoddy, right? So it was okay for some students, but what we know now is that it's the daily live instruction that really keeps kids engaged. If you're not engaging them, they'll find something else at home that will. So if you're not already, really try to incorporate live daily instruction into your routine, even if it's just for an hour a day or something like that. Many schools, though, are doing full 4 hours a day. But you'll have to do what works for your students. And then clarity, especially in asynchronous instruction. So you'll want to make sure that it's very clear what students need to be doing, especially for our students in special education. And then individualization, using a few reliable tech tools rather than trying to integrate too much, which can be overwhelming and confusing. And then allowing for some freedoms and compromises. So I'm going to talk about most of these in more detail now. I want to show you, when I said lively instruction, I'm going to show you an example of that. A little background first. I found this guy on the CEC, Council for Exceptional Children member forum. So I want to throw that resource out for you as well. I forgot to mention that earlier, that I've gotten a lot of information from the CEC live member, or I don't know if it's a live member forum, it's just CEC member forum. If you're not a member of CEC, I highly recommend it, not only for all of the research that you will have access to, but also this member forum just blew up when schools closed, and special education teachers around the nation, and I think even in other countries too, started sharing what they were doing. So it's such a valuable resource. And that's where I came across Pat. If you're interested in finding Pat, you could even use some of his videos yourself in your classroom. The YouTube account is Special Education with Pat. And I think he's also a really great inspiration and model for that lively instruction. So let's take a look. Let me switch over to him. I'm just going to share. Let me make sure my computer audio is on. I'm just going to share with you a couple of minutes. Okay. Here we go. We should be good now. All right. I think you can see him. Let me start from the beginning.
Hello, my friend! I'm so glad you're here! My name is Pat, and welcome to my kitchen! The kitchen is one of my favorite rooms in my house. I keep something very important here. Do you know what it is? Is it a bed? Food? Or a toilet? I keep my food in the kitchen! You're right! Great job! Do you hear something? Where is that sound coming from? Oh, you're right! It's coming from my stomach! I really want to eat something. If my stomach is growling and I really want to eat something, how do you think I'm feeling? Am I feeling angry, tired, or hungry? I feel hungry! You're right!
All right. So I really, really enjoy that. It's just so engaging and so much fun. One second, sorry. Okay, hi. So it's just so engaging and so much fun. And, you know, he's using PECs, and that was obviously a language lesson in language and vocabulary. And, you know, he's sharing his home, he's sharing his kitchen. Kids really enjoy just kind of getting a glimpse into your life. So a lot of good things happening there. Enthusiastic, fun. You know, he had some fancy graphics that would take a little time to learn, but I don't think too much. So, you know, you might not make videos quite like that with all the graphics and cool features like that, but I think his energy is such a great example of kind of what we can do with some of these pre-recorded videos that we create for our students. All right, and so I was talking about this earlier. Great teachers focus not on compliance, but on connections and relationships. I do see a lot of teachers kind of focusing so much on compliance before the connection is strong between them and the students. And it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be harder than it needs to be. That's going backwards. Focus first on those connections and relationships. Take a step back, give them a little bit more leeway. And then once you've built that trust and the connection, you can start pushing for more. And that's for all teaching, but certainly also during this time that we're in, students are really in need of positive connections with adults right now. So a little more on that, a few things that have been working for building relationships in special education specifically is checking in daily with each student. So if you have an SDC class or a smaller caseload, this should be doable. If you're an RSP teacher, this might not be necessary, a daily check-in, but I would definitely try to prioritize weekly individual check-ins with your students. If you're seeing them for Zoom interventions via Zoom, then you're already doing that. And if you're doing those live daily lessons, then you're already doing that. Find out their interests, and I put /obsessions because we know many of our students can have obsessions. And when you can incorporate those as much as possible, they're going to feel seen by you and want to come and show up more on their own. Also, I recommend holding one-on-one meetings with students at the beginning if you're able to. This isn't the beginning of the year, but really anytime, and make it fun. It could just be like 5 or 10 minutes. Play a game, share a funny story of your own, something funny that happened to you, ask questions, listen to their lengthy stories. You're really, by doing that, you're investing. These are investments that you're making into the connections with your students so that your teaching will be more effective and their learning will be greater. Laugh at their jokes, share photos, ask them to show you around their room, share your pets, ask to see their pets. And if you can do that once a month, that would be amazing. I know there's a lot of overwhelm and a lot happening. I know teachers are working really long hours, so you got to figure out what's doable, of course. But if you can make the time for that, it would be amazing. And then when you're not doing synchronous instruction, try to show your face as much as possible and in as many ways as possible. Again, to keep them feeling that connection to you. So if they've got some asynchronous learning and you've posted assignment directions, if you can put a Bitmoji of yourself on top of that assignment, or even a photo of yourself, smiling, maybe some will be a little bit silly or funny. That's another great way to keep the connection strong. Many teachers use Padlet, and I think Padlet is a great resource for many things, but I also like it for posting inspirational quotes or encouraging words to your students, individual shout outs. If you want to do that, I would just jot down who you've given a shout out to so that you can cover everybody by, the end of the trimester or the month or whatever. If you can put something personal, that's even better. Give your dog Coco a hug from me. And then share yourself and your life. Kids love this. They want to know you personally. So you can share your stories, such as, something funny that happened, something embarrassing that happened, even from your childhood. They love hearing stories from your childhood, something that you did last week, something about your pets, pet peeves, your family. If you have kids, if you have a toddler, my daughter always loved hearing stories about her teacher's toddler because it was always very funny. And it doesn't always have to even relate to what you're teaching. You can just do this during a weekly morning meeting where everybody just shares something. And then you can create kind of fun TikTok style videos and give kids the option to do the same and post them. And then theme days have been really fun for a lot of classrooms, throwback Thursdays, where all the students post their baby pictures. And you can do this, you can have them post pictures on Padlet. You can make it, of course, optional, just in case students aren't able to find what they need. But Furry Fridays means you post a picture of your pet or a favorite stuffed animal, Crazy Hair Day, etc. And then you can consider once weekly lunch bunch, where it's optional. Students can come and Zoom lunch with you if they want and just talk about anything. And you can invite everybody who wants to show up, and then kind of get students talking to each other and having some of those peer connections that they are missing out on when we're distance learning. And if we're only focusing on instruction all the time, then we're not offering them those social interactions. So that's a nice idea to do that. And then kids love getting mail. So you can also consider sending kids a letter, especially if a student is having a hard time with this, send them a letter, just, "You got this, I'm thinking of you," and they love that. I also mentioned collaboration with families. So this is one area that I've been hearing a lot from teachers. They're really grateful that this whole situation has actually helped them connect better with families than they had ever before. So some ways to do that is to hold office hours. I know some teachers are holding office hours like every day, but it's by appointment or once a week. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, just be clear and consistent with your availability. But that's really helpful and students can show up by themselves, or students and parents, or just parents. Really helpful if they're having tech issues, or just anything, to be able to come and talk that out with you. And then you might need to work with your parents to help them build an environment at least somewhat similar to the classroom. You can kind of this is something you as a teacher have experience doing, is building an environment conducive to learning. But your parents don't have that experience or that credential that helped them learn how to do that. So you may need to walk them through how to reduce distractions, how to allow for some movement, maybe some fidget ideas, little fidget toys that kids might need to keep in their hands so that they can focus better. Taking sensory breaks, giving multiple learning spaces. Like some students do best with one designated learning space. I see that advice given a lot, but some students do better moving around and moving, their tablet over to the couch for a little while, and then going, into their bedroom or going to a desk, whatever. Sometimes that's necessary too, because of the Wi-Fi issues or whatever. And then using maybe some visuals or visual schedules, you could send some things home to help them with that. And I'm going to talk more about sensory stuff in a little bit. You can also identify reinforcers that are already at home. So maybe they have a trampoline. If they work hard for 20 minutes, they can go out and jump on the trampoline, or lie down on the bed, play with slime, get some extra screen time video games later if that's okay with the parent and you think it's okay. Watch their favorite show, have some of their favorite snacks. So things that are already available at home that parents don't have to go out and spend money on. And then you can just kind of help them identify those. And you'll need to keep in contact with parents or caregivers regarding challenges and successes. Ask parents to frequently share what's working and what's not. And then you can problem solve together, you and the parents, and maybe bring it up to the whole IEP team. And then, just periodically check in and be sure to really listen to families. Families now are more in tune than ever with their child's learning needs now that they're seeing them at home. So really make sure that you're taking their input into consideration and using that. And many teachers have found it helpful to set up an exact schedule for students that outlines what to do, when to do it, how much to complete, when to take breaks. When you set up the schedule, it's very, very helpful to embed all of the links that they're going to need into, like, one page on the screen if possible, or onto Google Classroom where they can find it very easily, or whatever you're using. So links to Zoom sessions, your contact information, they can just click and email you, assignment instructions, links to videos, etc. But some students have benefit from making their own schedules with teacher and parent input and help. So, if the student is just really struggling to keep up with a set schedule, you could consider this as well. And we'll have another webinar up soon about helping students kind of create their own plan for that, a more individualized schedule. For instance, like, some students are very sleepy and just very slow moving in the morning. So some of them have been able to let their students start a little bit later, start school at 9 instead of 8, and then just work a little bit later. That's not always possible, but it's something to consider if it is possible. And there's a really interesting concept out there called your chronotype. And I put a link in here, but then I realized I can't really share links since this is a pre-recorded webinar, but you could just Google, chronotype daily schedule. And it's really interesting even for adults, just to kind of see what your chronotype is, when you have the most energy, when you're the most kind of sluggish, and then going with that flow rather than fighting it. So that's kind of an interesting thing. You can have students track their focus at different times of the day. Check in intermittently. Okay, guys, on a scale of 1 to 5, how focused do you feel on school right now? And then you can help students even graph this and review it at the end of a couple of weeks, and then consider adjusting their schedule accordingly. You might see some patterns where all of your students are slowing down at 9:30, even though recess isn't until 10. Maybe you're going to move up recess. And another thing is walk and learn. So research has shown that actually walking and listening to a lecture or a podcast or an audiobook is an effective way for the information to get to their brains and stay in their brains. So you could consider having students take their devices and watch or listen while they're walking, and see if that's a helpful thing to incorporate each week. Okay, guys, it's walk and learn time. You got to be aware of Wi-Fi issues, but if they're able to just maybe listen to a book or listen to a read aloud and walk around their house, that might be something that works, something to consider. All right, so breaks. I am in favor of allowing students to just take breaks and do whatever they want. But you might also consider, maybe once a day or a couple times a week, directing their breaks. And maybe you feel they would benefit from a sensory break. So you can say, okay, guys, this is our sensory break time. Here are your options. Some teachers have sent home, some sensory, like a pack of sensory items, or had parents come and pick them up from the school. So if they have that, you might say, okay, open up your sensory items and choose to go outside. You're either going to blow bubbles, you're going to play with water, or you can stay inside, play with the squishy toy. If you have a pet, you can go play with your pet and pet your soft animal. Use fidgets, go hug someone for that more, large motor input. Play in sand, play with Play-Doh or clay, that sort of a thing. And give them 10 minutes to just do what they're drawn to. And that can really help kind of organize their sensory system so that when they come back, they are able to be more focused. There's research behind this. And of course, that's what our occupational therapists are so good at as well. Movement breaks, same kind of an idea. If you're noticing kids are real, kind of squirrely at a certain time of the day, okay, guys, let's take a movement break. Maybe you're going to have them watch an exercise video and follow along, or go for a quick walk in your backyard or around your house. run around, do jumping jacks, do yoga for kids. Brain breaks. Now, when I mean brain breaks, I'm talking about giving the brain a break and doing something mindless. Maybe kids have been focused and they've been doing a great job of really thinking hard about things. They've been doing the hard work. Okay, guys, it's time. I'm going to let you watch this funny video or go hug someone, go play, meditate, go outside and just take pictures of small things. Just give your brain a break. I love the idea of, go outside and take pictures of tiny things. That's a really fun idea for kids, and then they can share their photos later. Some kids need a break to work with their hands. So that might mean drawing or even just tearing paper. Okay, guys, if you got any mailers that your parents normally throw out, ask them to save them, and then they can just tear paper. It's a great fine motor break, and that is really helpful to some kids. Cut and paste something, make origami, do crafts. These breaks, you can lead them or you can give them some ideas and they can do it on their own. And then some social breaks. I think this is really important to encourage to kids. Maybe they could FaceTime or call a friend or family member, write a letter to a friend or a relative, join some social groups online with parent permission. There are some that are kid friendly and generally considered safe, or just go hang out with your family if they're available. So some at-home sensory supports. Like I mentioned, many teachers are collaborating with parents to create a sensory bin using common items that they may have at home, or having parents come pick up a sensory bin that you've created. So those things that they might already have at home might be a squishy toy. That was all the rage a while back. Stuffed animal, soft blanket or fabric, something smooth, something fuzzy, something stretchy. Even students might be able to kind of collect these items and create their own sensory bin with a little bit of parent help. Something with liquid inside. Share how to make a sensory bottle. If you want to look that up, you can very easily make your own sensory bottles. You might already be familiar with that. There's glitter bottles, glow bottles. There's so many cool sensory bottles. So you could make those or have one of your aides make them and include that as something for parents to pick up. Or, if parents are able to make them and they want to volunteer to help you, that's something that you could request. And then, of course, you're going to want to help parents understand the purpose behind these sensory supports. Because again, parents do not have your credential. So they're not going to understand. It might just look like, oh, toys to play with and take up and clutter up the house. No, there's a purpose behind these. So be sure to educate the parents what the purpose is and how students can use the sensory items, and enforce some rules about their usage. You might consider sort of an all-parent Zoom meeting to train them on this, give them that education. And then there's a lot of freedoms that I think kind of like luxuries of distance learning. And this is not to dismiss the challenges of distance learning, but some students have really enjoyed a few niceties with learning from home. So just some things to remember and maybe allow students the luxury. For one thing, they can sleep in later than usual. Even if school is still starting at the same time, they don't have to get in the car or get on the bus. They could sleep a little bit later. I know some students have decided they're just going to brush their hair in the front only and leave the rest a little bit crazy. And they feel like a little win, like they got a little bit of a win out of that. So, you and parents can kind of compromise on some of these things. If hair brushing is an issue, compromise. All right, just the bangs or just the front, and then whatever in the back. Wear pajama pants, right? No shoes. Keep a pet on lap if the pet is pretty well behaved, or a stuffed animal on the lap. Might need to enforce some rules. Don't hold up your pet because that's going to distract the other kids, but if you want to go ahead and hold your pet, you can, as long as it doesn't get distracting. Having breakfast at their desk or snacks and a drink at their desk, as long as that's not too distracting, that's one of those luxuries. And you can consider allowing gum because they're at home. Some students are actually able to focus better when they have gum in their mouth, or when there's gum in their mouth, they are not chewing on everything else. So, even in school, some kids kind of have that written in as an accommodation because it's really helpful to them. But, if you think that would be helpful, you can talk to parents about that and maybe allow that. Now, when things get hard, because it's not all positive, right? There's been a lot of things that we're finding are working, and there are some positives that are coming out from this, but it's still hard. This is a hard time in our world. And if students are just struggling, focusing or showing up or just doing this whole thing, distance learning, um, here are some things to do. Okay, take a group breather. Hey guys, seems like we're having a hard time focusing. Let's do some deep breaths. One type of deep breathing that I really like, both for kids and adults, is a square breath. Okay, so you could hold up your hand and say, okay, everybody, we're going to draw a square on our hand. When we go down, we're going to take a breath for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds. So I'm going to do that with you right now, just so you can get the experience. Okay, get ready, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And I'm holding up my hand because it's a visual, but they could draw a square anywhere, on their leg, on their tummy, on the desk, and just do that deep breathing. I encourage you to try it yourself because it just brings everything to a more peaceful place. It is very simple and effective. I love it. Also, you can ask students to label their feelings, and then ask, how does that feel in your body? So you know what, guys, let's take a break and just go around and tell me how you're feeling. You might give them some feeling words, or even visual of feeling words that they can use to identify how they're feeling. Some schools have like a color coding system where, are you in the green? Here's some green feelings, calm, at peace, focused, happy. Or are you in the yellow? I forget what yellow is, but maybe it's a little bit hyper, or a little impatient or whatever. And then red is like angry, or just not able to focus. So you can give them some ideas if it's hard for them to put into words how they're feeling. Otherwise, just, how's everyone feeling? Now, where are you feeling that in your body? You feel happy? That's so cool. Where do you feel happy? Can you tell me in your body how that feels? Oh gosh, you're feeling frustrated. Oh man, I get it. Where do you feel the frustration in your body? It's very helpful for social emotional learning and just helps them get through it, right? We need to identify our feelings so that we can process them and then move forward. You can do a quick body scan. You can look that up on, just search for that or look it up on YouTube. There are a lot of 3-minute body scans. If you Google that 3-minute body scan, you'll get an idea of what that is. And you can just play that for your students, or you can maybe do it yourself. And then, of course, have games ready. There's so many Zoom games, a lot of really fun Zoom games that require almost no prep. So I would encourage you to get a list of Zoom games going. And if things just get hard and nobody's really paying attention, switch it up and play a game to try to get them back. So in summary, I talked about keeping that positive, forward-thinking mindset, focus on your relationships with students and families, show up live and in person as much as possible, guide breaks and offer sensory supports, and then encourage students to enjoy the luxuries of learning at home. And so that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I wish you all the best. Bye.